Hello everyone, my name is Kimberly Davis. I am currently studying to become a registered nurse, and I have also worked as a medical receptionist. With doing so, it has come to my understanding that there are certain things every person in the medical field should be familiar with. But one of those areas that I have found it most useful to explain is the importance of adhering to HIPAA policies and procedures. When working in the medical field, you must be completely familiarized with HIPAA laws and practices. Do not be left in the dark. Always be in the know when it comes to the rules of patient information confidentiality. Even as a patient, it's awesome to know and understand the responsibilities and guidelines that are put in place to protect everyone. There are medical facilities around the United States that follow one set of guidelines which overall protects the privacy of every patient admitted for medical care. These guidelines are listed all together under one act. This act is called the Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act, or better known as HIPAA. This act was originally passed on August 21st, 1996. I myself have walked into a doctor's office and have been asked to sign forms. One particular form, a HIPAA form. That form that is given to you by the doctor's office tells you how that particular office will handle your patient records. If you're like most, you really just signed off without even giving a second clue as to what you're signing. Well, as the patient, it may be okay to just skim over the details of this information, but to a healthcare provider, the info must be known like the back of your hand. Why is this important to healthcare providers, you may ask? There are numerous lawsuits brought about each year concerning patient confidentiality for one mistake or another, such as careless procedural decisions made where info was given that was relevant to patient confidentiality, outpatient information, or discharge information that should not have been released. This chart shows one type of violations, as well as the percentage of instances of HIPAA policy violations reported in 2013. 49% of the violations are labeled physical theft. 6% of the violations were due to computer hacking and data removal. 9% were a combination of both. But this chart also shows that 16% of violations were due to unauthorized access or disclosure of patient information. This could be where a healthcare worker did not secure a patient's records appropriately, or they just gave an unauthorized source the patient's information. According to HIPAA guidelines, disclosure of personal health information is limited to the individual patients and their legally authorized representative, the Department of Health and Human Services, and legal entities as defined by state law. There are, however, exceptions to the privacy rule, which include but aren't limited to reporting victims of abuse, neglect, or domestic violence. Patients must be provided with a written copy of the organization's Notice of Privacy in its entirety, which specifies their individual right to restrict the use or disclosure of this information. HIPAA, again, is for healthcare providers. It's a section that prohibits discussions of personal health information in the presence of unauthorized individuals, including other patients, families, members, and visitors, in common or public areas where you may be overheard when using telecommunication devices that aren't secure. If you're required to fax personal health information, you're expected to use reasonable and appropriate safeguards to ensure its security. Each entity should have specific policies in place to address appropriate safeguards for conveying this personal health information by email, fax, and verbal communication. Many institutions are currently utilizing encryption systems, and providers continue to require appropriate authorizations. Again, ways to avoid HIPAA policy violations are as simple as 1, 2, 3. 1. Always keep the patient's medical, personal, and billing information confidential unless given permission otherwise. 2. Remember, only the patient or healthcare provider should see the patient's charts that contain any type of private information unless you have written consent to share with someone else. 3. Never relay the medical information through an unknown source. That includes, but is not limited to, relatives, friends, email, mail, or voicemail that isn't on the list of consent. Keeping patient information safe and sound allows everyone to complete their jobs more thoroughly, and healthcare providers to focus on their primary job, keeping people healthy. Don't be in the dark, always be in the know. Also, for a list of resources for keeping up to date on the latest policies and amendments, you may review the sources that are here on this handout. Thank you.